First of all, thank you both for accepting this interview request of ours and for managing to find some time for this little conversation. And I wanted to start with an easy one, at least I guess it's an easy one. You were both very well-known authors before, prior to starting this Summer of Her Life project. So I was wondering what drew you to that decision to start a collaboration, and how was the process going on? I mean, maybe we could discuss, were there any obstacles you had to overcome, and also what are the things that you learned from each other within this process of creativity?
It's a long story, actually. A long story for a short graphic novel, but I think the starting point was that I had an idea for a graphic novel, and I asked Barbara if she wanted to collaborate with me. And this particular graphic novel was not the Summer of Her Life. It was a very long, epic story, probably 400 or 500 pages in the end. And we didn't know each other really. I knew Barbara as an artist, but not personally. And so we started on this, and I think she drew like about 10 pages or so, and then she was like, oops, that's going a little bit too long. Let's try out something shorter, if we can, if we harmonize, if we get along well with each other as artists. And if I had a shorter project. And then I think, since I was working for a newspaper at that time, I asked the newspaper if they were interested in an ongoing comic that's going to be published like every week, one episode each week. And they were willing to do this, and then Barbara and I developed this this cute little story together, pretty much. And then things were getting really complicated. I don't know if you're interested in this part of the story, because the newspaper then decided that they were not going to publish our comic, and we had to find a different platform or different means to get this published. And then we moved to the internet, which changed the whole project, because in the internet you have like infinite space, and the whole process of reading a comic is different from like turning a page or looking at it in a newspaper. So the project changed again, but I think the real obstacle for us was not really the story or all the artistic questions, but the pragmatic aspect of this. How do we get this financed? That's not very not very sexy to talk about, but it's that what it comes down to, I think. So, but financially, we were on the safe side with this in the internet. We had a good publisher there, and then in the end, it turned out
we made a book.
You know, exactly. We decided to turn it into a book, because somehow it was interesting to do this on the internet, but we both had the feeling that it wasn't the real thing in the end. And so doing this as a book, the whole project changed again. So that's basically the story.
Okay, and maybe some of the things that you learned from each other while creating this project.
I think this is the richness of doing a collaboration always, and I think this worked very well with each other. I think it is always both, and I wouldn't call it an obstacle, but it's a complexity to do a collaboration, which is both enriching, and I learned a lot about storytelling, about how to deal with words and images, and what do you need and what do you combine, and also, but yes, and also it made clear to both of us that it is a long process, and it was absolutely worth it, but it's work to combine two artists in this one project. And so I think, like Thomas said, it is not such a long book in the end, but there's a lot of work put in.
Since we were both at that time already artists with some kind of experience. I mean, Barbara already published a lot of graphic novels, and she collaborated with somebody before me on a book, and I already published several novels, so we were quite experienced, I would say. But the main thing with collaboration is, I think you have to get rid of your ego, and that was the main lesson to learn, I think. And if I would have, if I had insisted on my ideas and wouldn't be prepared to compromise, this project wouldn't have worked. And that was also the one of the best things about this project, that we just learned from each other and learned to trust each other, and
to try things out.
Try things
really
out. When you said, please explain this to me, that I don't understand this. I wasn't like, oh, damn you. Why don't you understand my ideas? Yeah, but I was like, oh, interesting. So how do I explain this to her? And by explaining it to her, she had new ideas, and I was trying to mix all these ideas together, and then giving all these ideas back to Barbara, and she turned it into something else, and that was it was all about losing control. And that's that's the interesting, that was actually the part that interested me most.
But art always is somehow about losing control in one way, right?
I wouldn't agree, because writing novels is, I always, of course, it's hard, and you always never get things the way done you really thought they would turn out. But in the end, I'm kind of master of the universe. There's no one controls me, and I can do whatever I want to do. But with the collaboration is, well, the way I explained it to you.
Yeah, I understand. And Thomas, if I understood correctly, this is your first time as a graphic novel scriptwriter, right?
Right.
Okay, and even though your artistic biography is quite impressive, I was wondering how challenging was it to work in this new form of art, and how hard was it to compress all that you wanted to say, express, and explain within dialogues and these short sections of memory that that are in this book? I mean, I was wondering, is it harder to write in that way than to just sit down and write a novel? And how helpful was your experience of from the film industry in this project and in this process?
It wasn't hard. It was something I always wanted to do, and I was always looking for a collaborator for a graphic novel or for a comic, because I felt that was really something I wanted to try out. And as you said, I also work as a filmmaker, so I always think visually. And with this graphic novel, it was not me, my part wasn't only the words. The words also, some of the words also came from Barbara, and the imagery came also from me, the first part, and then Barbara turned it into something personally. So, but when the first drafts I sent to Barbara always were imagery and words, and that's the way I envision my everything, my films and my books. So it wasn't that different, really.
Understand. And your Croatian publisher WBZ published this book under its within the borders of its on the margins project. So I was wondering, how do you both of you perceive marginality, and is there a bit of it in every artistic position? I was wondering, what does it mean to be a graphic novel author or an author an illustrator or a movie director in Germany nowadays? How hard is such a life, let's say?
Well, it is both. I think so graphic novel is, of course, it's still a medium which is not represented as other arts, and it gets still less attention than other arts get. But the attention is getting more in the last years. I think that's a good thing. And what is so? But of course, this position is sometimes quite difficult because, for example, there is not for doing graphic novel. There's such not. Oh, sorry. Can I start that again? Let me think. Okay. So, but what is a good thing in being at this marginal situation is that I have, as a graphic novel artist, I have a lot of liberty, I have a lot of freedom. There's still a lot of topics, a lot of things that are not experienced or not told about in graphic novels. I can do a lot of experiments. It's not such a big project like maybe a film would be, where there's a huge organization behind it. So I can do unique things and try things out much more easy, I think. And so I feel free actually as a graphic novel artist. But on the other hand, of course, like you say, it is an art between other arts. It's not, so in Germany, they are still not decided if it belongs to literature, if it belongs to maybe film, if it belongs to the bildende Künste, to the arts, to the fine arts. So it has a part of each of it, and of course it's a medium of itself. It's an own medium, but it is not represented until now like this.
What about you, Thomas? What do you think?
About the margins, I think of course, there's always too little attention and always too little money. And for artists, even if you work not as a graphic novelist, but as in literature, it's getting worse and worse. And with documentaries that I do, there's also very little money. But I came to understand that working as an artist at the margins, as you said, is kind of a privilege, because we, as an artist, we are not really part of main society, I would say, and therefore we can observe. We are the observers, and we are independent, hopefully, of trends or fashions, and so that's the privilege I think we have, that we can observe from a distant point of view. The sacrifice is that we most of the time we are looking for, as I said, financing, funding, and money.
Yeah, money is always the problem, but
yeah, not money in itself, but money as a means of liberty.
Of course, yeah, I understand. But now you shared one very interesting thought when said that artists aren't part of the main society, and what crossed my mind was, is there in that way some kind of a connection between artists and elderly people, as they also aren't perceived as a part of main society? They are always somehow on the outside. I mean, if you watch the commercials are always concentrating around young, joyful, happy, and healthy, and so on. So we really rarely discuss elderly, their problems, their situations, and even their needs. My question actually is, why have you decided to put this story from a perspective of elderly but women? Why? I mean, Barbara has one previous book published in Croatia, also told from a elderly female perspective, Irmina. And I was wondering, are there any differences between when it comes to the experience of aging between male and female experience? I mean, since you are the author of this one, why have you decided to put it through female voice?
Probably because it's the more interesting perspective, because we all know the male perspective, and the female perspective hasn't been told so many times. So that's what's more interesting to me. So I think we all imagine what a life as a man is like, or has been like in the past decades. But also for me as a man, it's also a bigger challenge to and more interesting, therefore, to imagine what it would be like to be a woman in the past decades.
Of course, there are differences. I'm not sure if the differences in the aging experience, but of course in the lives of male and female in the last century, like Gerda in the 1960s, 1970s, who needs to decide between family life or career life, her passion, astrophysics, and finding a way maybe later to combine it. But this is one of the focuses of the book, and I think it's her struggle. And this is a female struggle, and of course that was never a question for men in this time. So, and I think, like Thomas said, these stories are not. It is worth to tell these stories.
Of course, most definitely that they are all both very, very useful and pretty much needed. But now, when we spoke about how elderly people aren't seen in the public space very often, I read that you wrote this novel in 2018, but it grew to, as I realized, it grew to international popularity during this previous lockdown period. So my question is, will this experience from the previous year, in your opinion, be somehow helpful to us to gain more social attention to the elderly people, especially the ones in the care houses, as your protagonist Gerda is?
I think why we were interested to do a story about a elder woman is also because her life contains so many stories, and it is also a book about memory. And what was interesting us was to understand and to look at the process, how memory and the present is told at the same time, and always memory, not only with elder people, with everyone, always our memory is a part of our present lives, and to find possibilities how to narrate that. I think that was something which was interesting for me also with drawing. And while and within the process, I of course thought a lot about the situation of elder people in retirement homes. And I think both of us, we thought about our grandparents maybe, who were living there. And I think each of us is connected to elder people, alive or not alive anymore, and we feel and think about them.
Okay, I understand, but
Yeah.
my question was maybe more oriented towards will, in your opinion, this situation from the last year and from the lockdown somehow help us to gain greater social awareness of those people?
Well, hopefully, but I don't think so, because as you can see, at least in Germany, there are maybe two parts of society that are neglected or only perceived as a means of danger or risk, and that's the kids and the older people. That's not a real understanding of what's going on in the kids' minds or in the elderly's minds. It's just looking at them as kind of an object of danger or the object of risk, but nobody's interested in what's going on in retirement homes or at schools. I would strongly combine these two parts of society, the elderly and very young people. So I would say there has been temporary interest in old people, but it won't last, I think, unfortunately.
So you think we'll go back to where we were, or at even some worse point? Okay, but let's for a minute go back and talk about the title. I mean, what was very interesting is that summer is usually connected to the youthful period, while we often connect the aging process or the elderly period with the autumn, at least here in our Croatian vocabulary. So I was wondering, why have you decided to title the book "The Summer of Her Life"? I mean, was it somehow a metaphor of getting your protagonist Gerda back into the best days of her life, or is it somehow connected with the memory that Barbara mentioned earlier?
Probably. Who came up with the title, Barbara? Do you remember? Was it?
I think that was you. Yeah.
I think in the end it's It's an interesting title. That's the main
I
thing.
I remember the summer came up because for the newspaper, the newspaper wanted the series being published in the summer period. So that was, I think, the starting point. But for me, it makes a lot of sense, because summer for me is also something very emotional, and also it is something. The summers are my most intense memory of childhood. Feeling the summer, memories of summer vacations, and so this last scene when Gerda is with her family on the camping site. This was this made, yeah, I could very much connect to that as a field of memory, childhood memory, but also, yeah, an intense present maybe. And it is also summer when the book is starting, when we meet Gerda for the first time.
And Barbara, you mentioned also, memory before. So there was this one interesting, at the very beginning, it was very interesting how Gerda says that she tends to live in the past, as it is the only period that she really feels alive in. So I was wondering, is that maybe a dangerous part of memory when we keep, when we are trapped in it, and it feels like we cannot, somehow we cannot get out of that situation, when we tend to live in the past and we see past as the only good thing, or as the place where all the good things have happened, and like nothing is to happen anymore in the present or in the future.
Well, this is a big question about society, but when I can speak about the protagonist, about Gerda, this is something that is both, and her memories are not only happy, her memories are difficult, and but of course memory contains also a lot of, like I said, stories. It's stories. It's a full life, and a person like Gerda is carrying this full life with her, and I think that memory is not the same as maybe nostalgia. So memory is not always happy. So I think this is not the kind of memory which we were focusing in the book. And I think what Gerda is more like reflecting the time in the past. And I think this is always enriching. Where have I been? Where am I now? What is my focus?
Yeah, I understand, but now when you mentioned that it is a big question for the society, but I was also wondering why. I mean, Gerda says, and now you explained how she tends to live in the past, but it seems to me that as societies, we also tend to live in the past and to glorify those times that have passed as the most brilliant periods. So I was wondering, in your opinion, why do you think we do that? I mean, is that so that we wouldn't have to face the challenges and the obstacles of today, or does the reason lie somewhere else?
I'm not sure if it is like this, actually. In my view, I think well, maybe, but this is what I said about nostalgia. I think maybe people tend to see the past time as nostalgia, but I would never do this. The most of the past is hasn't been a good time. So I actually cannot really connect to this question.
I understand. Thomas, you?
Not really. I'm not sure if I agree, because as much as we live in the past, we also live in the future.
Oh yeah.
We don't live in the presence, but and either in the past or in the future. So I'm not sure about this question. I can't really answer it.
Okay. Okay, and what about, I mean, what was also very interesting is the decision to create Gerda as a retired astrophysicist. I mean, what lies behind that decision? I mean, it was when maybe you can comment on that, connected to her perception of time, which is now quite different than, for instance, our
It had, I think, two pragmatic reasons. The first one was that in the very beginning, I had the idea that this would be a comic, a graphic novel that deals with all aspects of time, not only of the past, but the nature of time itself. And the other thing about being a woman, having a woman wanting to be an astrophysicist, was that, of course, this was a close to impossible thing to be for a woman in the late 60s or 70s, and that how you can make a career or not make a career with this interest or hobby or decision, that was something that I thought would be a good subject for a graphic novel. So having a woman that was kind of atypical for that time, because she wanted to have a job at that time only men would have. Even today, I mean, how many women are there who are astrophysicists? I don't know too many.
Yeah, I don't know the exact data, right? Barbara, would you like to add something? Or?
I like this decision a lot because I found it very interesting how Thomas put these things together, like to find kind of sentences or rules or so from the aspects of time and astrophysics connected to Gerda's personal story. I liked how he put this into literature. And also the aspect of time is, of course, very interesting when you do comics, because in comics I have these panels, and panels show always time. This is what happens if we put panel after panel. So one image may contain time, but if you put two images together, you have a sequence, and this is time, you show time. So I like this topic a lot.
I understand, and what one other thing that one should congratulate you about is how you managed to escape every trap or every prejudicial situation when it comes to describing elderly people. And you showed how, through Gerda, you showed how they are also very capable of sarcasm, of irony, of humorous situation, of falling in love, of wanting to belong to somewhere, to someone. And that made me wonder, I mean, I was quite surprised, like, wow, they did a great job. And it made me wonder, why do we tend to forget that elderly people are capable of all those things and all those feelings as we are? And in the end, why do we actually need those we and them pronouns? I mean, why are we so afraid of aging?
Because it's, I think it's unpleasant. As you can see in the comic, you can't move as before. You depend on help from outside. You tend to forget things. It's getting unpleasant when you get old. You have to face the truth. So I think it's a natural impulse to not to talk about these things, but at the same time, it's really essential. And I think the main thing was that we wanted to be as realistic as possible, but at the same time leave, how do you say that, leave as much dignity as possible to these people. I think there isn't a single situation in the comic where it's getting really awkward or voyeuristic, as you say.
I think it is always the case that to do a story about a person, even if it's a fictional one, to get to know your protagonist and to really come close. For me also to draw the person and to draw her from all sides and to discover how she looks like and how her mimics are, and so this is a very interesting and good process always, and I think this is also the work what we do, to be not work with cliches, but to get to know one unique person.
And in the end, I mean, the greatest loss of this pandemic are of course lives of the people whom we lost during this past year and a half or so. But while I was once watching this one documentary about Bergamo in Italy, and their mayor said how they will never recover from the loss of all the stories that are now gone with the elderly population of the city that basically vanished overnight due to the COVID-19 disease. So I was wondering, of course, regarding that basically lives are lost, but is that loss of stories the thing that we will once remember as the greatest social loss of this situation?
Of course, this is a huge loss, and yes, I think that each life that ends takes a lifetime story with it away. What I thought about this question was that what we can do now is only to really realize how important it may be to ask our questions now to the people we love or to the people who are older, and to speak about lives and the stories, and to ask the questions while they are still alive.
I wanted to say that was somehow my intention, to ask about the importance of stories and of the significance of the loss that we are facing now with all those lives gone. Okay, so thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Petra.
Thanks, Barbara and Thomas. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.